Old Testament, New Testament. Same people, different time. Same time span. Old Testament, old rules, old laws. Same people, different names. Who's who? That's all I've been trying to figure out. There's two gods. There's also two gods where it's two people. They're playing both sides of the fence. And then there's the real God, and then there's the other God. Somebody's playing out, well, not somebody, a few people are playing out the Jesus role. And then come to find out, they actually play a pretty good Jesus role, because in the end, it's like this. Who's God? Well, what God are you talking about? The God of what? The God of war? Well, that's not the God that you would think. Well, but the God of what war? The God that creates wars, or the one that goes to war because he's provoked by God? So which God is it that we're talking about? There's a God of love and peace. There's a God of creation of flesh. There's a God that creates the alteration of flesh, and there's, which would be Satan. Satan is the God, Lucifer. Lucifer creates the Satan energy what you would call Satan is everything that's the opposite of your mindset when you turn to the God spirit, the one that just, you see, they say that we're born inherently evil. Well, there is one problem with that. We're born inherently evil because of society that we've grown up in, with the way that the world has been ran by Satan. Get rid of Satan and just let people live in a world. Get rid of the energy of Satan. Let people live their lives with new rulership and a different way of life, and then see how inherently evil people are. Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. It would have to happen generation after generation, where it stops now and starts, and then the quality of life. Why are people so angry and bitter and annoyed and irritated? Well, obviously because they have to work until they croak over and die. And some people, they have to suffer through life and live that way. They don't ever have any time for their family. They don't ever have any time to enjoy life, because they just have to pay bills, because electricity is created and there's nothing running it besides AI, and there's no need to pay AI for your electricity. There's no need to pay for water that runs through streams. There's really no need to pay for any of that stuff. Now, it's not like you don't have to work ever again in this new world, because this world here is collapsing. That's why Christ said that he's not of this world. That he's of this, he's born in this, on this planet Earth, but he's not of this world. because the world is a system. It's a beastly system right now. It's collapsing because they're trying to cover your face up and shut your mouth. And yeah, you can comply if you want to, but you don't have to. You just go through the process. So God, to me, has always been the energy of just how things work out for you when you're doing what's right, and then how things don't work out for you when you're doing something wrong. God is the spirit that sees. Just sees and knows. But there's also the all-seeing eye. Because the all-seeing eye can see everywhere you go too. But it has evil intent, which is to control you and put fear into your heart and give you anxiety and make you hate your neighbor and be grudgeful and just be at an unpeaceful mindset, because there's a thing called having to work for a living. You have to get up. You have to. I mean, you don't have to, but depending on what you put yourself in, what situation in your life, you don't actually have to do these things. Like, I don't actually have to go to work every day and complain about, my bills, because I moved into an environment where it's expensive to live, and I did it for my son and stepson, to give them their own room. It was the only place in the neighborhood available at that moment, and I was doing pretty good back then, and I figured, I didn't realize I'd be living here for 8 years. So it's time to move on from this place and work less. Regardless. Work less, pay less, experience life, enjoy it. Hopefully it's in Florida. And however it works, it works. But that's the reason why life doesn't feel like life for me at this moment. These past 4 years, I hop on YouTube. I speak my mind. I mean, for the most part, I speak my mind. Now, in the beginning, I was hesitant. I had demons. You've witnessed them, people that have watched me from the beginning. You've seen me battle, and you've seen me deal with just people in general. People in general, commenters, YouTubers that make videos about me and talk trash and that kind of thing, and call me a robotoid and false prophet and everything in the book that you can possibly do. And it's such an honor that you guys would do that for me. And there was people were expecting meltdown videos when I first figured out what gang stalking is, and it just never happened. And I'm still talking, and it's still every day, and I'm just still in your face for the people that were relying on that. And some of you have actually turned in the other direction. You're like, yeah, you know what? I respect you, Robin, for putting up with us, and not, because let's just face it, whether I like you or not doesn't matter. The fact remains, you're still up, you're still talking, and you're still annoying me. So I didn't do my job, and or I tried to do my job, and I just couldn't. The goal was to get you to shut your face. And then because it didn't happen, then you just got to deal with it. Some people enjoy it because they're a part of it, and a lot of people have turned in the opposite direction that can see. But this goes back to the low-level, slightly trained reviewers. Started it. You started to troll me. You started your job was to irritate me to death so I can literally die and get kicked off of, kick myself off of the platform, so I give up. Then, because they couldn't do their job, they brought in the highly trained reviewers. The highly trained reviewers, well, they have more experience. They're more like the Pharisees. I don't know, I mean, maybe the Sadducees are the lower trained reviewers. The Pharisees are highly trained reviewers. And then you guys came over and did your thing. And it's like your supervisor gave you the go-ahead to do it. And as you think to yourself, like, yeah, we got this. It's no problem. And then you wind it up not getting it. You wind it up not getting it. Then what happened after that, once your supervisor seen that you couldn't, that I kept getting up, taking up their time, well, I eventually took up all their time. But what happened was I was taking up your time too much, because the goal is to shut somebody up that's telling the truth, that gets up every day and talks. And when you can't do it, what happens is I take up more of your time, and then because you have an assignment over here with somebody over there, you got to do this thing, and you're always like showing up late, and you're not able to do it because you're consumed with this person over here. That's what got the attention of your bosses, because your bosses were the ones that they had to now get up, the supervisors. And then, and then here comes Stephen James. He had to get involved because at the beginning of 2018, you guys didn't do your job correctly. And then Steve got up, and then he did his thing. He reeled me in with Harold Camping, and then he did the gematria thing, and I stuck up for him. And then shortly thereafter, I realized what was really happening, and then it was time to stand on SJD instead of making a stand. Then at the end, it was time to understand SJD, because I went through phases. And when he failed, then it's time to get the higher up of the higher up, the ones that are less low key and more in the actual stream itself, more high profile YouTube channel-ish. Then they had to get up. And then after time, they tried and they tried and they tried and tried and tried, and then they wrestled and tried and kept wrestling and wrestling and trying. And then I start wrestling with them, and I wrestle with trying to figure out who is who in this realm of the Bible being played out. And then it brings me all the way back to the fact that I didn't know how many people were playing Jesus, but the reality is, when somebody plays Jesus, they also have the Father in mind as they're playing Jesus. So these are all actors. Somebody's acting as Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Then somebody else is being played out as God the Father. Because there's the sheriff and the deputy. The deputy's hired by the sheriff. So somebody on this planet, people from the inside consider him God the Father. Then somebody on this planet in the same realm is considered Jesus Christ, the Son of God, that person. Now, it may be a father that's like 20 years older than the son, and the son's playing Jesus. It could be that, because everything has to manifest and be played out. So that could be one aspect of it. Jesus is younger and then the Father is played out. But then there's also the spiritual end where the older serves the younger, and the older is actually the Son, because the Father is younger, and the Father is the creator of this the energy that's created in the world. Then, because in the Bible, I think it's towards the end of Revelation, where the Lamb of God is slain, and then I believe it's John who's writing the book. I could be wrong, but it's somebody. I think it is. He's getting ready to worship Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ, as the man with no father, is saying to the person that is looking to worship him, because he may be, no, this looks like a trap. I always try to take a different route, because this job is like a different route. Sometimes it seems like a trap. The person playing Jesus could be looking for someone to be his father, like God, the Father. But in the Bible, I believe it's Jesus that says to whoever's keeping track, and he's like, because he went to fall down his face to worship, and he's like, please do not do that again, because I am just a fellow servant, your brethren. Worship God in heaven. The Spirit alone. No single human being do you worship. You just don't do it. You can have a tremendous amount of respect for another human being with that spirit, but Christ wasn't looking to be worshipped. He was looking for you to change your mindset and turn your attention to God the Father, which is in heaven. Naturally, there's going to be a person that came from the actual literal land, because only people from the inside know about this, that is looked at as God the Father. And so when you say worship God of heaven, it's like, oh, you mean so and so up in heaven? No. The Spirit of God alone worship in heaven. So I can understand why, if somebody's on earth and they've been looked at as Jesus, that when they finally come to the truth that the person they're playing out is in front of their face, then they would tend to want to worship that person with their spirit. But understand this, that Christ doesn't want you to worship him. The human being that walked the planet was telling you to worship God, the Spirit, that you don't see God. You just see the Son that comes from God. And then if you've seen the Son, you've also seen the Father, because the Father is the words that comes out of his mouth is from the Father. The Son is just like a baby, a child, not even knowing. Like, can you imagine how much knowledge? Again, the Bible is way misunderstood because it was taught that way, as if Christ knew everything and he was a brainiac and he was perfect in all his ways, and he's never committed sin, never did anything wrong, and walked on water. No wonder why people get so turned off by that figment of your imagination story, because it's literally impossible and it doesn't exist. Because Christ was portrayed as, why would it? Sometimes I take GPS and it steers you in a wrong direction. Why would, what was I saying? Why would Christ, I don't know, but he was just telling you to worship the Father which is the Spirit of God in heaven. Because, oh yeah, I always thought Christ was so damn, like, had all the knowledge in the world imaginable, and he was teaching his disciples, and the apostles were learning. Well, yeah, they were learning from him, but at the same time, he was learning from them. How did he start? How did he start his ministry? And why did he start? Was there a pandemic back then too? Was it the same exact as it is now? Because the Bible could have been played out back then, and then it repeats itself over and over and over again. And time after time, it can happen again. Like 2,000 years ago, Jesus walked the earth. 4,000 years ago, Jesus walked the earth. 6,000 years, Jesus walked. Today, Jesus walks the earth. Same thing happens repetitively over and over again. Or it could be happening today only. And all the Jesus stories that you heard is actually about future prophecy, which is now. Recently, within the 7-year period, that, because there's this 3.5 year halfway between, or it could be 4 years because it's halfway between a 7-year process, which is 7 full years, which is actually 8 years, which would make half of 8 years 4 years instead of 3.5. So I'm just going to say it the way I see it, which is the Bible is being fulfilled now, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Isaiah, Zechariah, those characters, Peter and Paul, and they have different names. And there's 9 apostles, where there's really 12, but 3 of them are men and women. So at the end of the cross, there's really 3 women there, and then there's John, the one that wrote the book. There's 3 women that are at the cross and are all Marys. So it's like they're all like the same name. The Old Testament and New Testament is combined now because that's the fulfillment of the Bible. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Circumcision, no, it's not literal. You don't poke somebody's eye out because they poked your eye out. You don't get circumcised of your heart when your heart is your tree of life in the midst of the garden. Circumcision of the actual heart, which is just spiritual. Just like there's literal fulfillment, figuratively and spiritually. We all know about Israel, right? The land, the actual land of Israel over there in Israel, which is literal. And then there's a mystery, like figuratively speaking, mystery Israel, which is in a specific land that represents everything hidden. Once you find mystery Israel right here in Philadelphia, then you realize, oh wait, the spiritual meaning of it, because their mystery Israel plays out literal Bible verses. You need to get resurrected. You need to get insurrected in the insurrection. You need to get resurrected, turned up. Because if you're a double downer, like a natural man, you're just born with double down. Your tree of life hangs down, and you got two boys hanging with you. That's just double downers. Then you got one up, one down. I'm just assuming that would probably be a eunuch. One up, you just snip them because there's no more of that. But you're still hanging. Then you need to be doubled up, but also one up, one down is the surgery. That there's the natural man, and then there's the surgery of 2 options becoming a woman, which either one you go, up, down, or hidden, or pig in a blanket, kind of concealment. And so that's why there's literal Israel, and then there's the figurative mystery Israel. And then the mystery Israel people, they're playing out the Bible literally, so they take all those terms and make you think. I mean, that might be how they thought, or they knew that that's not exactly what it is, and they're taking it literally because nobody's there to tell them the spiritual meaning of it. Because the New Testament has to come into play in order to combat the Old Testament laws that you're under. Because if you don't make sense of it, of the Bible spiritually, then they're going to go ahead with the literal drinking the blood of Christ. That this is my body, eat my body. You know, it's not talking about your body physically. So the body of work. When you're eating the flesh of kings and captains, you're eating the message that they're selling. You're buying it. You're buying and selling the message that they are trying to get you to believe. So you're eating the flesh of the captains and the kings. And when Christ said, this is my flesh, he is not talking about the tree of life. His bone was not broken. Not a bone was broken. The scriptures cannot be broken. And there's no fear because the world is an actual joke. Like, it's just a big... The Wizard of Oz is behind the curtain. It's funny that the place where I'm at, there's two different jobs I've been at. My boss, one of them, Charlie, over there. And I hear all kinds of things about Charlie. And then over here, Oz. Oz is over here. And it's just funny how the names are tied in. The Wizard of Oz. So, but basically, the world is just one big bully. And when you pull the curtain back, you see who's behind the curtain. And then, is it the sheriff or the deputy that was hired? Because it's so intertwined. I can see how it can go from, it's like, well, you think you're Jesus? Okay, well then you're my father. You're my father. And then, because there's a regular person on earth that is Jesus Christ. A regular person on earth that's Jesus Christ. That Jesus Christ was not part of the inside. So, the inside part, whether it's done on purpose or out of ignorance, either way, somebody that's playing that person, when they finally come across that person, because that's in the Bible, there's somebody that was in place of, which would be the Antichrist. So the Antichrist is in place of Christ. But because what happens is there's a change of heart, and the person in charge, the last people to know that his heart changed was the ones that he hired. And they're the ones that stand shameful in the end. But there's a person that plays Jesus Christ. And then Jesus Christ is an actual, literal human being that's not part of the inside. The person playing Jesus says to Jesus, let's say it's evil intent. Okay, fine, Jesus. Father, I'm your son. I know I'm older than you, but you're my father. And then Jesus says to the wannabe Jesus, see that you don't do that. Don't worship me, worship God the Father in heaven. I am a fellow servant. I am a brother of yours. I am not your father, and you're not my son. Because his father's in heaven. So, but if Jesus was like, all right, son, then he is taking the place of God the Father, which is blasphemy, because he's not God the Father. Because God the Father is a spirit. You can't replace God the Father, the Spirit, in heaven. You can't. Because that energy is what it is. There's no second of that. That's what has always been and always will be, was, is, and always is God the Father, the Spirit in heaven. So Jesus Christ never took that role as if he's God. But people were calling him God. Some were trying to trap him into making him say that he's God, because then that would be the evil intent of the Jesus, the Antichrist, playing him, trying to play him literally too, saying, Father. And then he's like, no. Thank you for offering me the whole entire world. But no, you're not my son. I'm not your father. So stop trying to do that. Then there's the other aspect of, well, wait a minute, Jesus, you're not Jesus, because we're all Jesus. We are all Christ. And I'm your father, actually. You're my son, by the way. I am the Father, because I came from literal heaven. And yet, I mean, wait a minute. Hey, Jesus. Yeah, you are Jesus. That's right. You're Jesus. I'm your Father. I'm from heaven. I've been looking for you, son. All this time I've been looking for you. And there you are. We found you. In the ruffles of the dirt, there you are. A diamond in the rough. Son, come on with me. All you gotta do is just call me Father, and you're good to go, and you have the entire world to yourself. And then Jesus is like, come on, you get behind me already. You're not my Father. Jesus is like, yeah, I'm the Son of God. But haven't I said that all? What's your problem? You guys are all gods. I'm just the Son. And then that's why that person, that's why the other person, when, what's that, John from Denver? Are you texting me through my video again? Yeah. You know how agents are. They want to get in on the action. So the Father that's playing it out in heaven is trying to get Jesus to say to him that, yeah, okay, well, yeah, I'm Jesus, and then you're my Father, because, you know, you're God. Haven't I said that you're all gods? And that doesn't work either. And then eventually people stop trying to play games, and then that's when the truth finally comes out and everybody's told the actual truth of the fact that being nailed to a cross has nothing to do with a literal nailing to a tree. But you can believe it if you want. I mean, I don't care one way or another. You believe your own delusion. But it's a sacrifice, dying for the sins of everybody trying to play games. No, Jesus Christ is not your Father. No, he's not your Son. He is your fellow